2, 1.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the meeting of the Planning Commission of 26th of January, 2023. This is a hybrid meeting that is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by the California Assembly Bill number 361, effective October 16, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff and planning commissioners while allowing for public participation. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. All written comments submitted before 2 p.m. of the day of the meeting have already been provided to the Commission and are available for public inspection at the front lobby in City Hall, as well as posted online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. Any writings received after the agenda has been posted after 2 p.m. of the day of the meeting will be available online at the start of the meeting at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings, at which time the materials will be distributed to the Commission. For those who did not provide written comments, a call and telephone number was provided on the agenda, which can be viewed online at www.brisbane.ca.org/meetings. The phone number and instructions will also be provided during the meeting itself. Participants in the Zoom webinar may make their comments through Zoom. Please note that the Zoom participants will only be available to address the Commission verbally. I will announce time limits for public comments during the particular item. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Funke,
Present.
Commissioner Gooding,
Present.
Commissioner Lau,
Present.
Commissioner Saison.
Here.
The record reflect Commissioner Patel is absent.
Can I have a motion, please, to the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
And can I have a voice vote, please?
Commissioner Funke,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau.
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
It looks like the adoption of the agenda passes with how many ayes? 4 ayes. With 4 ayes. Are there any members of the public or any commissioners who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Through the chair, there are no items on the consent calendar this evening.
Okay. All right, so nothing, we just move right along here. I guess the next step in the procedure is to ask for a voice vote. Is that right?
There's nothing to vote on because there's nothing to approve.
Oral comments on the agenda. 1 minute. So I guess this is an invitation for oral comments is next on the agenda.
That's correct.
For items not on the agenda.
Or
Yes.
items not on the agenda, okay. And I guess the timer will start for 1 minute. We did receive two items from the public, one from Michael Barnes and one from Kim Folleen, who I think has requested to address the Commission later. And they were both of those communications were regarding the third item on the agenda tonight.
Twenty more seconds.
What's cool about this is you can access the cards use remote.
1 minute has elapsed and no one has raised their hand. And no
Right.
one in person has stepped forward. Oh,
Say it again?
How does this work, this meeting?
so it,
We do have comments, but we don't know.
is it for an item on the agenda or is it,
I think, yeah, on the agenda.
So-
right.
Oh, great.
there'll be time for you to
Okay.
comment on that when that item's called.
And you,
Okay, then I think it's on to the first item on the agenda. Is that correct? Okay, which I think is regarding the permit on Visitation Avenue. Can I have a presentation from staff, please, on this item?
One moment.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the item before you tonight is a request for a 3-year extension to previously approved design permit and use permit for a new mixed-use building at 213 Visitation Avenue in downtown. The original permit approvals were granted in December of 2020. The property owner was not able to pull a building permit for the project, and so they did submit an application prior to the original expiration period for the 3-year extension as allowed in the design permit ordinance. No changes are proposed to the project design. So the request is simply to extend the term of the permits that were already approved. I'll try to keep this as a little truncated, leave some more time for discussion if there are any questions. We attached the December 3rd staff report with a full detailed analysis, description of the project, analysis of the project's conformance with the design permit and use permit findings. But I'll kind of do a quick overview here just for the benefit of everyone here tonight. So again, the proposal is to construct a new 3-story mixed-use building with a 4-car parking garage on the ground floor and a 280 square foot storefront commercial space at the ground floor. The second and third stories would contain 4 dwelling units, 1 and 2 bedroom units. The ground floor storefront would be conveyed as a live work unit. This is not prohibited as part of the NCR02 regulations, so just more of a point of information. That's what the applicant proposes to meet the storefront requirement there. The requested use permit would modify the parking requirements to allow 4 off-site spaces where 5 are required. It would also modify the standard size of the spaces slightly below the design requirements in the municipal code. The applicant has also requested a reduction in the storefront square footage. Oh, gotcha. Which is typically 600 square feet. However, the NCR02 district regulations allow the commission to adjust that square footage should a smaller square footage be feasible and justifiable. The applicant has also requested a reduction to the required 400 square feet of passive open space per unit for condominium developments and proposes an average of 180 square foot of open space per unit instead through a combination of private and shared outdoor spaces. Included in the design permit request is a approval for a 35-foot height limit. The typical height limit is 28 feet, but the commission may approve in the design permit up to 35 feet, which again was approved as part of the original 2020 approvals for the design permit. Other than the standard design review findings, there are no special findings that apply to allowing that 35-foot height. So I'll kind of leave it at that. The December 3rd staff report, which was attached to tonight's staff report, again, provides that detailed analysis of the required findings, as well as conditions of approval. As no changes to the project design are proposed, staff's recommendation remains the same and unchanged, that the commission go ahead and grant the requested 3-year extension to extend the life of those originally granted permit approvals. We have not received any written correspondence on this item to date. And I'll go ahead and end my report there and entertain any questions of the commission.
Before we go on, just for my information, I don't have any questions about the permit itself. My question is, how long is a permit good for, and how often can it be extended, and for how long? That's just for my education.
So a design permit is, the original design permit is effective for 2 years. And you have to pull a building permit within that period. You can, if that doesn't happen, you can submit, the applicant can request a 3-year extension maximum to the original approvals. And that 3-year extension is effective. It's tied from the original effective date of the permit. So this particular permit, the approvals would have expired on December 19th, I believe, of 2022. If this extension request is approved, they would expire 3 years from that date. So December 19th, 2025.
3, 5, so 3 years extension.
Mhm.
Okay,
There are no additional extensions provided beyond that in the design.
okay. So you have to get building permits in that time, or it just expires.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only question I had, and I'll just go around. And Commissioner Sasan, do you have any questions on this item?
Yes, thank you. Quick question, Julia. Did the applicants give a reason as to why they couldn't pull building permits within the 2 years?
I think the applicant is here tonight and they can address that question. I'll defer to them.
Okay, and if we grant the 3 years and that expires, do they just start over? Is that how it works if they want to?
Yeah, if they still want to pursue the project, they would submit a brand new application, go through the process all over again.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, that was my question as well, was whether any reason was given for the delay, and we can ask the applicant. So thank you.
And finally, Commissioner Lau.
That was my question as well. I did have maybe one other question regarding layouts, because there's 2 1-bedrooms and 2 2-bedrooms. But just looking at the layout on the 1-bedrooms, there's also a study with a closet. And could that not be considered as like another bedroom?
It's a good question. So it's interesting how what the building code considers a bedroom or not. Ultimately, those rooms, you may have noticed, they have widened kind of hallway entries and no doors. So given that proposed design, the study area was not considered an additional bedroom.
If they were going to like, could they list it as a 2-bedroom in the future, or?
Advertising for like a listing, I mean, if you're asking like, could they rent it and could, people occupy it as a bedroom without a door? I suppose technically that's possible, but again, it wouldn't, under the building code, be considered a bedroom. It wouldn't meet the egress requirements, other requirements that apply to bedrooms in the building code. I mean, similarly to someone could rent out their living room right now as a bedroom, and it's not really built or intended to be used as such. So
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from any other commissioners? Seeing none, is the applicant there? Should we to say
Yes.
anything, or do
The
they want to
applicant is-
address?
yes, if you're ready to hear from the applicant, we'll go ahead and promote. It's Arjun. Arjun, Jeremiah is promoting you right now, and you should be allowed to talk.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there.
Yeah, so we wanted to address the questions around, I guess your question is around why we haven't pulled a building permit as yet. So just a few things happened. So one is we did the soil testing, and the condition for that soil, that site is very unusual than what we've seen in other spaces in Burlingame. It has almost 5 feet of infill,
Landfill.
landfill. And so after talking to, we worked with prestigious soil engineers, it seemed like, I think at some point when Visitation Avenue was built or whatever, and they took the curves, like a lot of dirt was put on that site. We did some research looking at the library's findings for soil reports, because we can kind of like use some of the soil reports of adjacent sites to kind of gauge like what kind of work we would have had to do preliminarily. And when we got the soil report findings, it was a shock to see the findings of the soil report. What that happens for that site is that then we are required to do extensive amount of structural work that is unprecedented in the work that we have done as developers. It's not to say we can't do it, but the level of structural work that we've had to do basically renders this project almost financially unviable. What's harder for that is also, I think it would still be financially viable if the lumber prices hadn't skyrocketed. I mean, at that point, the project just became completely financially unviable. And since the lumber prices came down, I got pregnant with twins, and I was hospitalized for a majority of 2021. And then I don't know what happened to 2022 since the twins came along. It's just been not feasible for me to execute a project of that, which requires that much involvement. So those are the three real reasons why we've really just not pulled the permits, because it requires us to go back to the drawing board, revisit structural work, and see, what are the best and the most cost-effective ways for us to take it off the ground now that, lumber costs are down. And and I'm back on my feet again.
So current status is though that that you wish to renew the permit and without modifications, draw the permit and complete the project.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. You were just addressing the commissioner's questions here. I don't know if it's customary at this point, but do any of the commissioners have questions of the applicant? Anything they want to follow up on? Commissioner Saison?
Yes. So do you have any idea when you think you'll break ground, and also when do you think the project can be completed?
The completion will definitely, so there are a lot of factors now that the lumber costs are down. Construction loans have become extremely, where they were like a few years ago versus where the loan, if we take construction lending, the cost of doing that. So it requires me to literally go back to the drawing board and run the pro formas all over again. I think the biggest problem for us has been just the cost of the structural work, the amount of piers that the building would require because of the 5 feet of infill. It's just something we've done very complex projects in San Francisco on corner lots and like crazy slopes that we've not had to do the kind of structural work that got thrown at us because of the soil report and what the structural engineer said we need to make like a sound building. And so we need to go back and revisit the, what the new costs are going to be now, given the costs and, what our lending rates are going to be, and revisit the viability of the project.
I also,
Wait, so you haven't even determined yet, or even hard, because you said what you want to do, your next step is to tear down the existing structure. So you don't even have any idea when that will happen.
Well, the existing structure is a small little shack, just in case you're not familiar with that location. And so we're in the process of determining, as Ritu mentioned, for personal reasons, we were not in a situation to start a project, given that we had mitigating reasons, that being the landfill and going around that stuff. But we're going to evaluate that, and we're expecting to start it within a year. And we expect the construction would take about, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 18 months.
Yeah, at least.
But that is our plan.
At least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, the building is a small little derelict shack, so it's not adding any value.
Yeah,
but
and so the demolition of that structure is really not consequential, because that will probably be, I don't know, 20, 30 grand of 40 grand. So I think that's the smaller piece of like the cost that would be involved in the big cost is actually in really getting the building together and structural work that will go after the existing shack is, demolished. But I think once we determine what the plan of action is like, and it's all our ducks are lined up is when we just start work, we start work. So it's not like we would demolish and then there'd be a vacant lot for like, another year or 2 years and then something else happens. So right now, like that's the plan.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gooding, any questions?
Just one, well, two. As a parent of twins, congratulations and best wishes.
Thank you.
But as a commissioner, is there a plan B for this property, or do you have any fallback position?
Yeah, the plan B for this proposition would be if we find it that it's financially unviable for us, we would consider putting it back on the market if somebody wanted to buy it entitled. Like either a contractor could buy it and build it because their construction costs would be lower than for us because we don't have in-house construction teams.
Thank you.
Let's see. Commissioner Lau?
Yes, I had a question or two. Well, first of all, yeah, congratulations on your twins. And, with the demolition, possible excavation, significant engineering, and then construction, what would you anticipate, the disruptions to street traffic, would that be on Visitation or on Monterey? And this would be for, 15 to 18 months?
I don't anticipate that much disruption. I mean, most of our work, experientially, we've done most of our work in San Francisco where parking is just extremely restrictive. And Brisbane I haven't seen that level of restrictiveness in the parking. So I don't anticipate, whenever we've gone to the site, either to like check out conditions or because the fences are broken down or whatever, we've always found parking on the street. So I don't expect that level of traffic or that level of disruption that we would that we would have an impact on traffic patterns on the street.
Certainly not 15 to 18 months. I think the only level of interruption usually is doing public work. So for example, if we were required to replace a sewer line or, the PG&E, I believe the service might be underground there. So it's just, I would say it's more sporadic when we work on utilities. That's the only impact. I don't think there's any significant impact otherwise.
So like your heavy equipment would be left, on the premises and not be parked on Visitation and, the ingress, egress of all that equipment.
Certainly.
Yeah,
For security of the equipment and as well as just so that we don't impinge our neighbors, we would park all that equipment on site.
Sorry. Commissioner Lau, anything else that you want to follow up on?
No, thank you.
And Commissioner Sai-Sung and Commissioner Gooding, anything else that's occurred to you? Okay. At this point, I think we invite members of the public if anyone is interested to comment.
I do have 2 speaker cards. The first one is Douglas Makela. So Douglas, go ahead and step up to the podium. The mic should be on.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
So I live right across the street, and I used to own the building on the corner, which now Denise owns, the Beauty Fix. Is this planned to put this house or this building right next to the Beauty Fix? Right now, there's like a 8-foot or driveway going down. And the other thing is that the parking, I don't understand it. There is no parking on Visitation Monterey, either side of Monterey, as it stands now. So I don't know where all these people are going to park. And they said there is parking, but there really is not. just because I live right there. And I don't understand how you're going to get 4 units. I mean, that's a minimum of 6 cars. If you only have 4 spots, you got 2 on the outside plus whatever else people are going to bring in. I just don't see how you can park it there. And I don't understand the garage, how it's going to be, and you're going to dig out on Monterey Street or on Visitation. But you have the Midtown and the Beauty Fix at that level now. What do you do? So I'm just trying to find out, figure out the parking. I think the parking is not going to work at all. There is no parking as it stands now. So I don't know where the commission lives, but that's where I live, right downtown. And there is no parking. There's it's or Monterey Street. So that's my questions. Those are my issues I want to know about it. And how tall? 35 feet. How's that going to look on that town or on the main street? So I just have questions on that. I'd like to have answers, especially on the parking. And I guess that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, thank you. I actually, is it usual to respond to questions? I think you're kind of showing the answer here, and I think these questions must have been addressed when the original plan was approved.
I'm
So go
prepared
ahead.
to
I don't know
answer
who
the
would-
questions.
I'm sorry?
At your pleasure, I'm prepared to answer his questions if you'd like.
Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I did put up on the screen, sorry. I don't know if it's full screen available.
It looks full screen to me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is showing the ground floor plan for the building. So it's showing the entry. Oops. Navigate. It's showing the entry here, coming in from Visitation Ave. There is already a curb cut and driveway. There's already a curb cut and driveway. They're gonna, yep. So roughly that same exact curb cut they will use to come in. Here's the drive aisle here. Here's the garage area here. They're going to use mechanical lifts. So each lift would accommodate 2 cars. So that's 4 cars. You can see, you had asked about setbacks. If you can see, this is the exterior building wall here that abuts the property you're talking about, the Beauty Fix.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So the district allows 0 setbacks, and they are taking advantage of that. So the building wall, the ground floor would go right to the property line.
Yes.
At the second story, there would be a light well on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And if I actually might have to stop sharing to go back, I don't know if I have that here. Oh.
I can't see the distance, the length. Just because I can't see it from here. But I mean, it probably runs the whole side of the Beauty Fix before it goes into the garage.
It's a building, it's a wall. I'll show you an elevation. It might be more clear.
Okay.
Here's the 2nd floor plan. So you can see there's a light well on that side of the building. It's a carve out of the building wall so that it's not just one flat plane. It's going to have a shaft basically.
Yeah. I see that.
Yep.
Just
Okay.
like in the city, San Francisco, you have a light well.
Right. Obviously, the structure next door is only 1 story, but it could be redeveloped in the future with,
Yes.
yeah.
So basically, on the left side,
Yep.
where the cars come in, first and second, first floor.
Yeah.
It's the parklet, and then it stays the parklet, and then the 2nd floor.
Let me show you elevations, which may not be in this slideshow. One moment, please. All right. I may need to, well, maybe this helps. Does this help illustrate a little bit what that condition's gonna look like? Yeah.
Okay, so the garage, is there gonna be a space on the left of the garage between the beauty fix? Or is that, because that garage shows that it's closed and the wall goes all the way down,
Right.
butting up against the building?
The building will be built right to the property line.
Right to the front building. And
Yeah.
what happens with this building if they have work to do on this building? And there's 2 windows there that you're gonna close off on our building.
Yeah, so
But how can you close off windows on some of them?
there's the Brisbane library that was just built. It actually we encountered the same issues for adjacent properties on, I think, either side, where there were windows that, because the Brisbane library also maintains 0 setbacks or at least, around 0. So it's a issue
Well, the
of
library
conversation
is
and,
illegal.
okay.
So will they have to take care of the visitation or the beauty fix wall?
I don't think that's something we've talked about yet, to be completely honest with you. I don't know, John, if you have any insights that I'm missing on kind of the legal perspective of what obligations may be on the property owner.
It looks nice. I'm not taking anything away from that. But there's still no parking and it's going to take up 6 places on the visitation because people aren't going to pull in the driveway. They're really not. I mean, they don't. They park all along the street. So we already have an apartment building up the street that has no parking. A duplex on the corner, which is mine, but it has no parking. So I don't know, and people are already complaining, my tenants and such, of no parking. So that other
So
picture.
there are 4 parking spaces
Yes,
behind
But
this.
the truth is that no one's gonna park in the parking place. Maybe 1 or 2 people, but they're not gonna go in, lift their cars up and stuff. They're gonna park on the street. And you only have 4 places. You have 4 units. I mean, you have 6 or 8 cars for those 4 units, and you can only get 4 on the street. I have 4 in the building, right? Where's the other 4 gonna go? And they're gonna park on the street. It just doesn't add up as far as parking.
I hear what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
Our code requirement says, based on the size and number of bedrooms for these units, that 5 spaces are required.
4 spaces.
They are proposing 4 spaces.
Right.
Our code says 5 are required based on the
Okay.
design. So I understand, I think they hear what you're saying, that you think that doesn't match with.
No, it doesn't. I mean, not that I'm ever gonna do it. But I have a
Can-
10,000 square foot lot across the street. I mean, how
Right.
many units do you wanted me to see?
Can everyone hear Douglas? I'm sorry, we've been having a conversation and I don't know if, first time we're doing this, if
Yeah, it's
it's
okay.
audible to everybody.
It's a little bit broken up, but
Okay.
I can hear it. I don't know the other commissioners.
Would you mind going, is it okay to go to, yeah, thank you, to the podium again so they can hear you better?
I mean, I have a 10,000 square foot lot right across the street. So, can I go 30 units someday because I can get 12 parking spots? It still it still affects the neighborhood. It still affects Visitation Street per business. And I have a property down on Monterey Street that affects that. That's all I'm getting at is that there's not enough parking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand, I don't see how you can approve something with not enough parking, especially when this city really has no parking anywhere. I mean, it's a big issue throughout the city. So I think that should really be taken into effect of this, is that you have no parking. And you're adding more cars where they don't fit. That's it. That's that. And I don't understand what we can do next to the 201 visitation, the beauty fix on that wall, which has 2 windows that have been there for, 40 years that we've owned that building. So we just sold it. What can we do about that? And who's responsible for putting up a new, if you do allow right up to the beauty fix into the Midtown, who's responsible for repairing any walls before you put up, it's a big expense to fall on someone who just bought a new building to have to replace the whole siding and do everything new and close up 2 windows. And the window's already there. And they have been there for, well, as long as that house has been there. So those are my questions. Those are my issues.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming to the meeting and raising your issues.
Just through the chair, in terms of the windows and the construction aspect, those details are typically resolved through the building permit process. So when the project, if it advances to the building permit stage, those code requirements in terms of openings, fire protection, adjacent property conditions are addressed as part of the building permitting process. That's normally where those get addressed.
What does the building permit say about going up against existing properties where there's windows and firewalls and so on and so forth?
That's a discussion to have with the, if you want to have a discussion with the building official, we could, through Julia, we could arrange a
Okay, all right.
conversation about that.
Okay. Any questions?
Okay. I don't know when.
Okay, thank you.
Because we have Danica.
Yeah, I think parking will certainly be a perennial issue. I do get the impression that some attempt was made in the permit to address it with pretty extensively, but I think that parking will always be a crunch, and hopefully there'll be some ways to address it, on a citywide basis, but I don't think that can be on the agenda tonight. But the concern is certainly heard.
It is part of this. It is part of this thing, the parking. Also, I own 200 feet of Visitation Avenue. And right now I have to build so much, if I ever develop, I'd have to build so much storefront. Would I be able to cut down in the percentage that they've cut down on that 200 square feet or 200 feet of property? That's all I'm saying. I mean, does that work also down the road? Does it set a precedent? If people start taking retail space and making it smaller, does that work for everybody in town and on Visitation? Being Visitation is our main drag.
All projects are subject to their own individual review. So the same kind of permitting requirements that these individuals went through for a project of the scale and type any project would go through. If there are exceptions requested, a project proponent can make such requests. Whether the commission approves them or doesn't approve them is a discretionary decision for the commission to make. So
Okay.
Each case is considered, or project is considered case by case.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Was there someone else who wanted to address the commission on this topic?
Yes, we had a card put down for, is it Danica? Danitza. And I just want to say Michael Barnes has his hand raised as well, and he will be next. So Danitza,
Okay.
please go ahead up to the podium. At City Hall, I don't know. I'm
I
not
feel
sure.
rude having my mask so you guys can't see me, but hi, you guys. I don't know if you guys remember, I met you guys our June, and it's me, the one that owns the hair salon. My questions were, sorry, just so you could see my mouth. My only questions were, I'm super excited about having a development make our city look better. I mean, the plans are beautiful. Obviously, my concern is now that I'm a new owner of the building, thanks to my uncle. My concerns were those the same, right? Obviously, I didn't know what the clearance was in between the two buildings, which you just showed me with the floor plans. Thank you so much, Julia. I just didn't know what that looked like. Cause yeah, of course I do have 2 windows. That is a big source of our lighting in that building. And then my only other concerns, of course, my customers may have less parking, but I do understand that you guys are going to put in the garage to allow for parking because your tenants will be parking inside, hopefully, which is great. But those are my only other concerns other than what Douglas had addressed. So mine were just the biggest concern was next to the property, which I think is valid, of course, because it's going to be pretty near it. And then the parking in front, because as well, my clients need somewhere to park. And that's a big reason why people come to Brisbane, they kind of escape and there's parking at a sandwich shop and there's parking at your beauty salon, and it's nice. So I think that was just my only concerns, was the parking in against the wall, what the clearance was. And may I have for future, would I be able to have a copy of the plan or what it looks like, just so I know in the future what it's gonna look like next to our building, if possible?
Sure, if it's okay through the chair. Danita, there are copies of the staff report in the lobby
Perfect.
that have attachments that are the
Of the
plans in
pictures and
small
everything.
size. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for your
It's
time.
also
and it was
online.
Nice to see the two of you. Congrats.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Great, thank you. I think you said that Michael Barnes.
Yes,
also
Michael
raised his
Barnes.
hand.
Yeah, you can speak now, Michael.
Good evening, Chairman Funk and Planning Commissioners. My name is Michael Barnes. I'm a Brisbane resident. It looks like this plan, the use permit and the design permit for this has already been approved in 2020. Looks like a great project. I think it will improve downtown. It will remove some blight. I say this should be a slam dunk, and please approve it as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other in queue to address the commission?
There's no one else. And the
Okay.
slides have been up for over 2 minutes.
Okay, and there has been enough opportunity. We don't have to wait an additional 2 minutes.
We can do maybe a 30-second.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead and do that.
Ten seconds. All right, 30 seconds has elapsed and no one else has raised their hand.
Great, thank you very much. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And can we have a voice vote, please?
Commissioner Funka,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau.
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
Great, the motion to close the public comment period passes with 4 ayes, and that begins the deliberations period. So I'll just go around the room and the screen, and I'll start with Commissioner Gooding. Do you have any other thoughts on this item?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the only issue for us tonight really is whether or not to extend the existing permit granting that we did back in 2020. I think we're all, very, very conscious of the parking issues and the, density issues, but those were all debated and talked about when this thing first came up. And I think the only issue before us procedurally is really whether or not to extend the permit an additional 3 years or not the merits of the original permit, which were already decided. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Saison?
Yes. Yeah, my only concern was, the fact that, they hadn't broken ground, and, when I was really excited for this project. So, I passing by it and, I didn't see anything happening. So, but I'm glad to hear that the applicants are committed to moving forward, and, hopefully they can, get this project together, and we'll see a beautiful building within 3 years. So, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Commissioner Lau?
I know I wanted to recognize, the concerns of neighbors and, ongoing issue, especially with parking. But, what we're being asked to vote on tonight is, just the extension of the design permit, which has been previously vetted. So.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't have much to add to that. I think it was helpful to to be made aware of the sensitivities. But I agree that the only issue before the commission is whether or not to extend the application as it was originally filed. Any other comments from any commissioners before I think the next step would be to ask for a vote on this issue.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Lau, second. Can I have a voice vote, please?
Commissioner Funka,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes with 4 ayes. I want to thank all the participants who spoke up on this issue. And I think we move on to the next item on the agenda, which I think concerns Sierra Point. Can I have a presentation from staff, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair. This agenda item is for a design permit to extend the existing rooftop screen to allow additional rooftop mechanical equipment at 2000 Sierra Point Parkway. Brisbane Municipal Code Chapter 17.42 requires a design permit when a substantial modification of an existing principal structure for which no design permit has previously been issued is proposed. The same chapter defines the term substantial modification to mean an alteration of the exterior of the structure to the extent of significantly modifying its basic design, elevations, size, appearance, or relationship to adjacent properties or structures as determined by the planning director. This application does not alter the location or orientation of the existing building, nor does it increase or reduce the scale and intensity of the use. No modifications to the building's access or landscape areas are proposed either. The 10-acre subject property is located at the center of Sierra Point the Sierra Point sub area and is bordered by Sierra Point Parkway to the south and Marina Boulevard on its western and northern sides. The site is developed with an office building and is surrounded by other towers in the sub area. At 12 stories, it is the tallest structure at Sierra Point. As shown in the photos, the existing rooftop screen matches the green and white color scheme of the building's exterior, and this screen at the top is 13 feet 4 inches tall. In 2022, a building permit was issued to modify the infrastructure within this building to make it more suitable for life science tenants. The scope of that building permit included replacing rooftop mechanical equipment that had reached the end of its useful life, as well as installation of new infrastructure and equipment required for life science tenants, which generally require a larger footprint to accommodate everything. The proposed modification under this design permit would expand the mechanical penthouse by about 2,200 square feet. The dark yellow area of the image in the middle indicates the existing penthouse area, and the lighter yellow to the left represents the proposed expansion. The new portion of the rooftop screen would also be set back from the building's parapet and match the height of the existing screen. Finished materials and colors of the new screen match the existing as well. As noted previously, the application would not alter any other part or feature of the building. The photos on this slide simulate the proposed expansion to the rooftop screen. The top row shows the mechanical penthouse currently, as it currently appears, and the bottom row shows how the building would appear with the proposed expansion. A key showing the perspective of each photo is shown at right. The substantial modification of any existing principal structure in the Sierra Point sub-area is subject to the granting of a design permit, and a detailed discussion of each required design permit finding is attached in Exhibit B of Resolution 2022-DP-7. Said findings are generally summarized as follows. The project is located in the Sierra Point Commercial District, and as the orientation, location, and use of the building is unchanged, it would remain compatible with adjacent development. The proposed modifications to the rooftop mechanical screen would be complementary as they match the existing screen material and colors, solid white walls, and aluminum framing finished with green glazing. The white and green color scheme also matches the building's facade. While the building is the tallest in the district, the Sierra Point design guidelines require all mechanical equipment to be concealed and screened regardless of building height. The new portion of the screen would match the 13-foot 4-inch height of the existing screen, and it would also be set back at least 7 feet from the building's edge, following the existing lines and curvature of the building's footprint. This would keep the expanded rooftop mechanical area's scale, form, and proportions harmonious to the building's current design, while adequately screening existing and new rooftop mechanical equipment. Overall, the proposed modification to the building's exterior elevations respect Brisbane's vernacular architectural heritage and conforms to the Sierra Point design guidelines. This concludes staff's presentation with a recommendation of approval of design permit 2022-DP-7 via adoption of the attached resolution. Any questions at this time?
Any questions from the commission? I don't know, the applicant is there or wants to address the commission?
The applicant is here, but do you have any questions of staff before I promote?
My only one was, again, just for my education, the shed is being extended because there's a change in the tenant. Is that right? It's to accommodate their needs from the building. Is that right?
The building is receiving a slight overhaul that would make it more appealing to life science tenants. And those life science tenants would need larger equipment on the roof. So this request is to enlarge that rooftop area and ensure it's properly screened.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Saison, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Gooding? Commissioner Gooding? I didn't know if you had any questions on this
Sorry,
item.
sorry, I was muted. No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Lau?
Yeah, just curious, so what type of new or additional equipment are they proposing, and what kind of, specific equipment for, life science company is required? Is it, larger vents? I'm just curious what kind of equipment are they updating?
I'll leave that for Kevin to answer, but you're right in part that for life science, they want a greater capacity to vent or exhaust inside the building. So part of that would be, more fans or larger fans, but Kevin would be able to better address that.
Okay, thank you. Well, maybe now's the time to promote Kevin.
All right, Kevin, I've just promoted you. You should be able to unmute and start video if you desire.
I am Kevin Norman with DES Architects and Engineers and representing Health Properties. The equipment on the roof is just larger air handler units and chillers. Same thing you would have on an office building. It's just a lab building, moves a little bit more air through for safety in the labs. And so the equipment's a little bit larger. There's also larger exhaust fans bringing the air out of the labs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That seemed straightforward, and I think that addresses the questions that were raised. Any Commissioner Saison, any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gooding? Commissioner Lau, anything additional?
Just for curiosity's sake, so like the larger exhaust fans, are these really to also, they filter through, like, imagine all the hoods and, from all the labs? And I take it those are all filtered multiple times before they're let out?
Correct. Yeah, it all has to meet all of the code requirements for filtering and exhaust.
Thanks.
Okay. Great. Is there anyone, I guess we need to give an opportunity for any members of the public to comment on this, or so we start a timer, 2-minute timer to see if anyone raises their hand or shows up?
Yes, I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. There were no comment cards submitted, so no one here.
Okay.
1 minute.
I guess we have to sit out the full 2 minutes, right? That seemed like a long minute. And do we need a voice vote at the end of this to close we have to obey all the formalities?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Just wanted to check. So I hope someone's getting ready to make a motion.
30 seconds. All right, 2 minutes has passed. No one has raised their hand and no one else has decided to step forward here at City
Very
Hall.
good. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Can I have a voice vote, please?
Commissioner Funke,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau.
Aye.
Commissioner Saison,
Aye.
Very good, thank you. The motion to close the public hearing passes with 4 ayes. Any additional deliberation on this item from anyone? Commissioner Saison, I see shaking heads. Commissioner Lau, any other questions or comments?
No, thanks.
Great. Can I have a motion, please, on from the commission on this item?
I'll move to approve the application for modification of the design permit as requested, and adopting the findings suggested.
Projector.
Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
And a voice vote.
Commissioner Funke,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye.
Commissioner Lau,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes with 4 ayes. Congratulations, I guess. That's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I think that brings us to our last item on the agenda for this evening's meeting. And can I have a presentation from staff on this item, please?
Yes, thank you. You can hear me okay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. My apologies for the video stream. That's not connecting tonight, but we have audio, so that'll work. This zoning text amendment is to update the research and development, or R&D, permitted and conditional use provisions in the SPCRO Sierra Point Commercial District. In 2008, City Council adopted an ordinance that allowed for R&D uses as either permitted by right, uses that require a conditional use permit, or certain uses are prohibited. In summary, with regard to using live animals, or the ordinance has these 3 categories. So those R&D uses that are permitted by right include insects, rodents, rabbits, fish, and amphibians. And this is as currently written. R&D involving the use of live dogs, cats, or non-human primates is prohibited. And use of other live animals that are not in either of those 2 categories are subject to a conditional use permit. For conditional uses, City Council named itself as the approving authority instead of the Planning Commission at that time. No special findings were provided for R&D use permits, but the standard findings for use permits apply. These focus on potential impacts to neighbors, but do not specifically address issues of animal care related to R&D work. Animal care at R&D facilities is the purview of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA. Last year, Bristol-Myers Squibb applied for a use permit to conduct R&D using mini pigs at 1400 Sierra Point Parkway. And that's the only R&D use permit application that's been filed to date. That application was heard by City Council last May and continued for further public hearing. And ultimately, the applicant withdrew their application before a decision was made. Following that application, City Council directed staff to initiate an update of the ordinance to consider use provisions for live animals. Additionally, a City Council subcommittee met in October with staff and indicated a desire to consider removal of the R&D conditional use categories for animals, so the conditional use category, but also made a recommendation to consider removal of rabbits from the permitted by right R&D category. The details of the proposed ordinance amendments are provided in your agenda report, including a redlined attachment comparison to the existing ordinance, but I'll highlight just a few things here. First, the amendment would retain the provisions allowing for R&D by right on insects, rodents, fish, and amphibians. However, consistent with the council subcommittee recommendation, the use of rabbits for R&D would no longer be permitted. R&D on any other animals that are not specifically identified as permitted would now be prohibited, thus eliminating the conditional use category that presently exists. Use of rabbits would no longer be permitted, however reptiles would be. Also, the use of insects has been broadened in the draft to a larger category of invertebrate animals. And invertebrates include insects, but also animals such as spiders, worms, a host of different animal groups that don't have a backbone. Given those changes, the only vertebrate animals, those with a backbone on the permitted for R&D list would be fish, amphibians, reptiles, and rodents. All other uses would be prohibited. On a couple other matters besides live animals, there is also an administrative clarification regarding cannabis R&D performance standards, but it would not change the allowance of cannabis R&D as permitted in this district as it currently is. There would remain one class of R&D uses that would still require a use permit, and those are not related to animal testing, but are those uses that exceed risk group 3 as identified in the National Institute of Health. This is not a change from the current ordinance, except that such uses would require Planning Commission approval instead of City Council. The determination of the risk group level would be based on documentation provided through a risk analysis to be submitted by prospective businesses to the planning director. And that would be either as part of a building permit or as a business license application, since in some cases you may have a building that's already built out to suit an R&D use, so they may not have building permits, so we added business license application. And the performance standards have been clarified in that regard. So in closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission provide a recommendation to City Council of adoption of zoning text amendment 2022 RZ4 via adoption of the resolution that's attached in your agenda report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much.
I should mention also there were a couple items of correspondence on this matter too.
That's right. And I believe one of those is present, if they still are. I want to address the commission.
Can I ask Ken a question?
Of course. Please go
Ken,
ahead.
do you know the rationale of like, excluding rabbits out of this list of animals, for, being approved for or not approved for R&D purposes?
The subcommittee indicated that they thought that the use of rabbits may not be as necessary as it once was, and that it could be done through other means. And there was a concern over the the use of rabbits essentially as if it's not necessary and we're putting them through perhaps procedures that may be painful or other concerns.
The other thing too, the subcommittee, before there was a prohibition on, certainly an absolute prohibition on companion animal testing, dogs, cats. I think certain members of the subcommittee felt rabbits were more akin to companion animals as well, as opposed to rodents. So that would have been another sort of, I think, reasoning that there was put before the committee as a recommendation.
Do you know, was there also like research involved, or, you know, asking other outside, you know, expert, you know, opinions on, you know, on that matter?
There was a letter that council member Cunningham had submitted to the larger council through the city manager, as I recall, and that's actually attached in your agenda report, and it had a couple web links to articles essentially supporting her argument.
No, I actually read that article as well, and you know, you can Google search and find, you know, anything to find different, you know, opinions on this topic. But okay, I was just wondering what the, you know, if there was some rationale behind, you know, excluding taking off rabbits, but not like rodents or something else.
Yeah, it seems like there's a clear line. I just had a question. I just want to make sure I understand the issue completely. So originally in 2008, certain animal testing was allowed by right, and that included rabbits at that time. Correct. It excluded primates, dogs, and humans, but you could conditionally ask for permission to perform research using other animals. So for example, mini pigs, they're not mentioned in the by right group, nor are they specifically prohibited. So you could ask for permission. Okay, so I'm understanding it right.
That is correct.
And then what is being proposed here is that rabbits be removed from the by right group. And furthermore, that there will be no permission given for any other animals. So mini pigs are not allowed already because they are now. That's it. There's no more conditional usage. Okay, that was just for my clarification. I just want to understand that clearly. Any questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Gooding?
No, I don't think so. Thank you. Not of staff. Thank you.
Commissioner Saison?
No questions.
And Commissioner Lau, any other? You'll have opportunities later as well to say what you think, but any questions right now from the planner?
I'll reserve my comments for later.
Okay.
Through the chair, I've just forwarded some written communication I just received. I just forwarded to Mr. Johnson. So Ken, if you want to read that into the record, I think it's a short, relatively short, a paragraph email.
Okay.
If you receive that.
Let's see.
It's forwarded from the city clerk.
Right. From Bill Van Ram, if I say his name correctly. It's addressed to Ingrid, the city clerk, to forward to the commission. I hope this gets to you in time for tonight's planning commission meeting, and thank you for all you do. I'm writing this letter to say, please do not further restrict animal testing in Brisbane. I, like so many others, have benefited from testing. After 30 years of type 1 diabetes, I had eye issues leading to the loss of sight in one eye, but saving the sight in the other. Kidney failure, subsequent kidney pancreas transplant, 2 strokes, heart attack with a bypass surgery, There's been other things too, but I'm trying to keep this short. The medicine and procedures would not have happened without animal testing. Computer models are a wonderful advancement in medicine, but unfortunately they can't replace all animal testing. While I completely understand the emotional aspect of animal testing, it is my opinion we shouldn't set back things because of our emotions. Thank you, Brisbane resident Bill Van Ram.
All right. Thank you. If there are no further questions from commissioners to city staff, can we open this topic for public comment? I think you've already received some comment cards.
Yes, I put the number up on the screen for those who want to call in, but we have Kim Foley. You may step to the microphone.
Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Kim Foley. I'm a Brisbane resident and I've been working in biotech for the last 36 years. I'm here to request that you reject zoning text amendment 2022 RZ4 as there doesn't appear to be any basis for it. The city council who is requesting this amendment didn't consult with any drug development scientist when they decided amongst themselves that animal testing on species outside of rodents, amphibians, insects, and fish was no longer necessary and should be prohibited. The FDA typically requires drugs for human use to be tested on one rodent species and a non-rodent species prior to human clinical trials. An example would be the messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccine made by Pfizer and another by Moderna, which the city recommended that all of us Brisbane residents get. These vaccines were tested on non-human primates. Additionally, heart drugs typically need to be tested on pigs, as rodents aren't a good human model. Limiting animal testing to only rodents, amphibians, insects, fish is really limiting animal testing to just rodents. I don't know of any human drug development that uses insects or amphibians, and I'm not sure I know of any that use fish, certainly not at any company I've worked at. While a recent US law has eliminated the requirement that all drugs in development undergo testing in animals prior to human clinical trials, the alternative testing methods, such as computer modeling, are still quite limited and won't work for all drug development. Additionally, development of these alternative methods, I believe, likely involved animal testing. I can also tell you that the pharmaceutical industry will gladly use these alternative methods if they can, because it reduces the time and cost of drug development as compared to animal testing. Drug development scientists are really the ones that should be determining what type of testing is best suited to ensure a safe drug for human use, not the Brisbane City Council. There are Brisbane residents, you just heard from one, that have benefited and will benefit from drugs tested on non-rodent species. I highly doubt most Brisbane residents, including the City Council, would refuse a vaccine or life-saving drug for themselves or their children if testing was done on a non-rodent species. The zoning text amendment makes no sense. It's NIMBY. And if we all want life-saving drugs to continue to be developed, I don't understand what we're doing here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other raised hands or anyone else in the room?
Yes, we have Michael Barnes.
Michael Barnes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Funke and planning commissioners. My name is Michael Barnes. I'm a Brisbane resident, and I was actually on the City Council in 2008 when we first passed this ordinance allowing animal testing by right on Sierra Point. I believe this should be a science-driven discussion. When we first created the animal research as a permitted use on Sierra Point, we received expert testimony from a toxicologist as well as citizen testimony, such as you've heard tonight. I am both a citizen of Brisbane and a drug research scientist. While computer simulations of living systems have improved in the intervening 15 years, They are based on the results of animal testing and are still being developed. I have worked on a cardiac ischemia reperfusion injury project, and we wound up using pigs as our animal model because pigs have hearts so similar to humans. I would like to question where this ordinance change has come from. And again, I'm wondering if it's based in science or if this is comes from some other place that I don't understand. In closing, I'd like to say that rabbits are still a valuable animal model for many different indications and should not be removed from the animals permitted for use on Sierra Point. If the commission can't make a decision tonight, I would suggest that possibly you get expert testimony to help guide you in this process. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other members of the public who have raised their hand or any comment cards?
There are no others. The slide has been up for 5 minutes. If you wish a 30-second warning for anyone else.
Sure, let's do a 30-second warning.
$15 seconds. No one else has raised their hand, and there are no one else here at City Hall.
Great, thank you very much. Can I please have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I'll
And a
second.
second. Thank you. Voice vote, please.
Commissioner Funka,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau, Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
All right, thank you. The motion to close the public hearing passes by 4 ayes, and that starts the deliberation by the commission. And I will just go around the horn as I see it. Commissioner Gooding, do you have any additional questions or opinions?
No additional questions. I have a couple of points to make. I'm not a scientist. We have a couple of those on this commission, but I'm not one of them. With my legal training, I was able to determine that at the end of this last year in December, the Congress passed the FDA Modernization Act 2.0 as part of other legislation, which apparently removes some of the obligations of the FDA to mandate animal testing, but does not really go any further than that. And the FDA has taken a position, I think, if I read my quick and dirty research, to be able to adjust those requirements as testing protocols improve in methods other than animal testing. So my point in that boring rant was to note that there appears to be motion from the top down to try to go to places where we don't need animal testing, but the extent to which we're there yet, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, and I don't intend to be one. So my concern about this particular issue is that we are being asked to whether or not we recommend adoption of a zoning ordinance that takes or considers pigs and rabbits differently from mice and snakes and bugs and other things for reasons that I'm not entirely clear about. Those are my comments so far.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Saison?
Yes. So I looked up, I read some on this as well, as Commissioner Gooding. And so when this FDA Modernization Act was first considered, it was introduced by a Democrat, Senator Cory Booker, and a Republican, Rand Paul. And so it's difficult to get consensus in our Congress these days. But on this issue, Republicans and Democrats seem to agree. So here's a quote I wanted to read from Senator Booker. He says, thanks to modern scientific innovation, the use of animal toxicity testing for experimental drugs has become increasingly obsolete. This legislation will eliminate unnecessary suffering for countless animals when scientifically reliable alternative methods are available. Senator Rand Paul, his Republican colleague, also added, the FDA Modernization Act would accelerate innovation and get safer, more effective drugs to market more quickly by cutting red tape that is not supported by current science. It would also prevent needless suffering and death of animal test subjects, which is something I think both Republicans and Democrats can agree needs to end. So I think the rationale here is for all these politicians to agree, you would think they would have consulted with the FDA and all stakeholders. So I assume they talked with pharmaceutical companies, experts, scientists, doctors, patients, advocates, whatnot. I mean, you just assume that all that had to go into place before they put this legislation, before the floor of Congress, voted on it, and for the president to sign on it. And I think that required a lot more thought than the four of us tonight that has to decide on this issue, put into it. So, when I was thinking about this issue, I thought, I think their educated judgment is something that, I haven't had a lot of time to look at this, and I'm sure no one here really has, but I'm sure they did their research. So I think my vote tonight will defer to their more educated judgment on this issue.
Great, thank you. Thanks for looking into it as much ahead of time. Commissioner Lau, any deliberations for yourself?
Well, so my background, as you know, is I'm a physician, I'm a surgeon. I haven't done bench work or scientific work, in a while, but I think the pharmaceutical companies, I don't think, they advocate, for doing a lot of extensive animal testing. They're developing alternative models, but you can't test for everything in those models yet. Some of them have to be, be animal tested. Hopefully in time and in the future, we'll have models that won't require these animals, but we just aren't there yet. And I'm not sure what the genesis of this proposal was, but bottom line, I think you should let the experts decide on, what we should, on the language or, what what the city allows a company to, to test for or not, not just lay people, doing some research and coming up with, some recommendations. You really should let the experts make that decision. But that's, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I am also employed in the biotech industry. And so that colors my comments, and I'm also an animal lover. So I have a lot of respect for the place where this comes from. Really, in summary, I won't go on for too long because I think that that Kim and Michael Barnes summed up the argument from the perspective of someone who works in the industry as well as I could. We submit new drug investigational packages all the time, and I have yet to submit one that does not include testing on a rodent model, or to determine no adverse event levels and exposure in a non-human primate model. Those are already excluded here, but I don't think any company is in a position yet to submit an application to the FDA without performing that kind of testing. So I do think there's something wrong on the merits here. So I can speak to my experience in oncology. I think if someone at BMS was to tell me that in order to develop a drug for a skin condition, they needed to use a mini pig, I would be in no position to question them. And part of the reason I say that is, of course, they would have their foundations in biology. There's a similarity of the organ systems and the physiology between humans and pigs that makes that entirely plausible to me. I think the other thing, and I think one of the commenters may have mentioned this, I think that the people in the industry would be the first in line to stop animal testing if the models were effective. If they knew that you could adequately test a drug, the safety and the adverse effects in cells, a layer of cells in a petri dish or in a computer model, they would do it, because keeping animals alive in a vivarium, it's highly regulated, it's incredibly expensive, it takes a lot of FTEs. If they didn't have to do it, they would not. And I think I also respect a little bit the other point that was made, that we all do benefit from these drugs. I think it's sort of unfortunately, it's a bargain we've made. Maybe it's kind of a devil's bargain. If you want to develop safe and effective drugs, at the moment, I do think, even while we're developing better models, I think you're obliged to do that in animals. And to forbid it in Brisbane, I think it would send a signal, but I suspect that BMS is performing the experiments that they wanted to do on mini pigs somewhere else. I'm not saying that I necessarily want them to do it in Brisbane, but I just don't think that there's any merit in or any point in us forbidding it here. And I see no reason to amend what was done in 2008. I actually think, for the most part, given the nature of the biotechs in this area, I don't think it'll go much, if at all, past rodents. But it just does not make any, I think, scientific sense to forbid it. The field is moving in this direction. You can see there's political momentum. It's coming, but we're not there yet. And I don't think that we have to be the tip of the spear here in Brisbane. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'll stop my comments there.
Those are great comments, but also, if this was adopted, what does that say to other biotech companies here? Do they want to, even if there was any prospect of that they needed to do some testing, would they want to do the testing? Would they want to have businesses here in Brisbane, or would they just leave? They could easily do this animal testing, overseas, but I'm not for adoption of this amendment or revision, but thank you.
One more point, please. So I do want to acknowledge one possible argument that would be in favor of amending this ordinance, and then I'll address why it may not be a great idea. But to the extent there's some political pressure nationally, maybe internationally, downward from the top of the system to press for better, more reliable testing methods that don't rely on animal testing, that's laudable. And it, as Commissioner Funke said, it's coming. We know, we see it coming. It's already in the law. We are 30 days into this brand new law that was signed by the president, literally, I think, December 27th. So it's coming, but it's not fully resolved right now in terms of how the FDA is going to interpret it and all these things. There is some merit to the notion that, should local communities and local municipalities and local governments apply pressure from the grassroots up to say, we don't like it either. We don't want it here. They don't want it there. Those folks there don't want it there. Maybe that's a valid point, but in my mind, I'm troubled by the fact that we are all at this local level trying to play scientists a little bit as to what the best way to do that is, and why mice yes and rabbits no and snakes yes and pigs no. This may not be within our competent purview, and that's what troubles me about it.
Commissioner Syson?
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it is, one, okay, the federal government has said that drug companies don't need to test on animals, so we have that approval. And then the other view is more, not so much, we're not telling scientists what to do or how to do testing. We're just saying that as a community, we don't want something like that done here. They can go elsewhere. I mean, we're just a city that, you know, it's about being compassionate. It's about, having empathy for other feeling, thinking beings. I mean, so that's just us showing, what we are as a community and how we feel about this issue. So, and communities across the country, they do that all the time. They pass laws because they want something over, some people believe in gun control, some people don't, whatnot. I mean, so for this issue, what do the residents of Brisbane feel? Do you want pigs or other animals being tested on in our little city? I mean, do people want that? And when this issue, I think, first came before the city council, they received quite a few correspondences and whatnot from people, I felt, opposing that type of testing. We didn't really get a lot of response here today, but I just feel as though, they say necessity is the mother of invention. So if, drug companies really want, right now they say, well, we need to test on certain animals. Well, if we prohibit it, maybe that'll light a fire and encourage them to, try more invent new technology so that we don't need to test on animals. I mean, just because, sure, some drugs or whatnot, you'll need to test on animals, but I mean, I think for the most part, probably not, because if that was the case, I doubt the FDA would have gone along with Congress and the administration when they, proposed and signed this bill into law. So I'm just thinking that, it's more about our values, what we want. And I don't think it's us telling scientists how to do their job. That's not it. I mean, we understand that animal testing, furthers their understanding of things. I think that's a separate issue from what, at least, the way I see it. So.
Yeah, it did occur to me that in some ways, this might not be different than a community, for example, deciding that they didn't want an Amazon fulfillment center in their backyard. It's just like they don't feel it fits with the what was the word that was used, the vernacular of the community. I'm afraid, to me, there might be just a little bit of I know that if I have God forbid something happens to me or someone in my family, and that I would want drugs that are safe and effective. The science is not there. I know that Ron Paul and Cory Booker, I think that they have this bill, but the science is not there. And for reference, I would say, there are many organizations who were in support of that law that Paul and Booker passed, but not a single pharmaceutical company. There was one, Teva, I think they make generic drugs, but there were 200 who were opposed to it. And if you go to, for example, the website of like Pfizer, they do have a transparency statement on this. And they'll say, we don't want to test on animals. We want to minimize it. And I can't remember, it's not reduce, reuse, recycle, but it is a slogan like that. No pharmaceutical company wants to test on animals. And I doubt anyone in Brisbane wants, I think that's the word to use, wants animals to be tested in Brisbane. However, if you want the benefit of safe and effective drugs in the future, I think that you have to say that I want the benefit of that, and I want the best research to be done to develop those drugs, but not in my backyard. To me, I'm very uncomfortable with that. It would make me feel hypocritical. I think the way to influence this is to advocate for the development of better processes and to minimize the use of animal testing. No one wants to see animals suffer. Of course not. But the science is not there. And I personally don't think that we should inject personal values into codes like this. Let the science drive it. And I actually don't think politics should drive it either. I think the law is very commendable, but I actually don't see any in the near future, and this is the language that was used in one of the things I can actually, I think this is the heart of the matter here. Companies specializing in computer models for the pharmaceutical industry, such as Cytoreason, have noted that AI, this is great, maybe you can just put the structure of your drug into ChatGPT and it'll say at this dose level, this will be your exposure, and these will be the adverse events that you'll see. This is the future we all want, so we don't have to put it into a cynomolgus monkey, but we're not there. And that's why, I know that for the next applications I'll be filing, unfortunately, we will have to do these. So they think AI could eventually reduce farmers' reliance on animal testing. However, it may be more challenging to replace the use of animal models in toxicology studies in the near future. I think this is about the most objective summary of the issue that I can come up with. Everyone's heart is in the right place, but to do it in the near future is very challenging. So for us to forbid it in our backyard, I think all it does is send a signal with no basis in the science. It's just a statement of values. And I don't think we should do that in our codes.
Do you think, though, that computer models and AI, whatnot, can take it to a certain point or enough, and then you have human clinical trials, and that's voluntary, right? I mean, people volunteer to test these drugs. These animals, thinking animals, they don't have a choice. So if the computers can take us to a certain point which is close enough that we can get the final answers by humans who volunteer to do so, I mean, wouldn't that cover it?
Of course, it would. That would be, in an ideal world, it would. But we live in a very litigious society. And I don't know if you're aware of the fallout from clinical trials when, for example, patients die. Nowadays, what you do is you stagger the dosing. But it has happened in T-Generon. They did a study. They did not stagger the dosing, and 3 patients died. And we haven't heard the end of that yet. And I think of Vioxx. So I actually am not so sure that you wouldn't, as a pharmaceutical company, want to take all measures in the best models, including AI and including computers, but until those are really predictive, I think you'd want to do the full suite of tests. And if someone told you you couldn't, I don't think I would take the risk. I think I would take my capital and invest it in something else. Certainly not biotech, because the risk is just too great. You cannot guarantee that the drug will be safe up to a certain level, that the exposure will be exactly as you predicted. I don't think so. I mean, there is some altruism in clinical trials. Patients do accept risks. But I'm not sure that they want to be, to use sort of an unfortunate term, guinea pigs in that sense, I feel like I've hogged this conversation a little bit, so I'll hold my.
So I have one more point. I already raised it a little bit earlier, but I maybe I can highlight it one more time just to make myself feel better. I don't really see a rational basis to say no pigs, no piggies, no bunnies, but rats and snakes are okay. I think speciesism is the term I was trying to think of before, which is this notion or this idea that we bifurcate or segmentize the animals that we can experiment on or do trials on. And it's not whether I'm right or wrong about pigs and bunnies. The issue is that this is an example of local municipalities trying to legislate about science and carving these odd lines between species, which is neither science nor government, and I'm uncomfortable with it.
I would like to ask a clarification question, and I think you mentioned it during your presentation. But how did this land on the Planning Commission agenda? And there was something about the authority of this switching between City Council and the Planning Commission. I wonder if you could clarify that for us.
Yeah, so City Council, when they adopted the ordinance in 2008, named themselves as the approving authority. Normally, the Planning Commission is the approving authority for all use permits. And then if somebody wants to appeal that decision, it would appeal to City Council. So that's one piece of that. And I'm not sure if that's answering directly your question. The other side is that City Council directed staff to bring this to the Planning Commission because the Planning Commission would be the authority to recommend to City Council what a new ordinance might look like. So if you wanted to direct staff to revise what we have prepared here tonight and come back to you with something else, we could go ahead and do that. And then once you have a recommendation, it would go on to City Council to adopt the ordinance.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the commissioners? I don't know if we're aiming for unanimity here before we take a voice vote, or
one other issue that comes to mind is that we're short one commissioner tonight, and our chair. I don't know that this is a pressing issue that has to be decided tonight. If one option could be that we continue this matter so we can get a full commission in the near future and see if we have consensus or at least a clear majority. Just one idea. I don't really, it's not that my point is not to put it off, but rather to get as much input as possible into the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think that that's reasonable, and I agree with the idea that this is probably not urgent. Yeah, I don't know if I would change my position on reflection, but I did actually resolve before I came here to at least keep an open mind, with the idea, like Commissioner Sison said, that if a community wants to, if this is one way they want to express their values, then what's to stop us, or to stop them from doing that? So I wanted to make sure that I was open, and I'm actually open to continuing it as well to the next meeting and having input from Commissioner Patel when he comes back. How does that sound to staff? Is that okay? Is there an urgency behind this for us to decide on this?
Well, I think if we want to continue with one meeting, and I'm assuming Commissioner Patel, does anyone recall if he'll be back the next meeting? Is that his leave is over?
My recollection is he was only going to be absent during January, but
Yeah, that's what he said. So he should be back.
Yeah, I would hesitate on just delaying this in an extended period, though. This is, again, something the council directed us to move forward with, and, obviously need to be responsive. Whatever you decide to do, that's your prerogative, but certainly one more meeting, I don't see that'll be a problem.
So if Commissioner Patel is out through January, that would put us to the first meeting of February. Right? Yeah.
So February.
Sorry, I'm forgetting we're already in late January. So
Yeah, it'll be 2 weeks from now.
yeah.
February 9th, I think, right? I believe.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah, and if our next meeting on February 9th, there's a small possibility I won't be able to attend because I'm actually on call that day. So, and I'd like to be present for this, for the vote as well. But.
Yeah, and I think, we could take it for the record. I think I'm very unlikely to change my mind. I think having heard anyone. So, and given that the goal is not for us to be necessarily be aligned behind it, is there any harm in taking a vote and just recording the result?
I guess I would ask if you have alternative language that you would like staff to prepare if you're going to continue this to another meeting, if you would like something else in writing to be able to contemplate.
Mm-hmm. Is that something we would decide after the vote? My position right now is actually that that I see no reason to change what was approved in 2008.
Okay.
So I would not put that on staff to write anything else, but I don't want to speak for the other commissioners.
Can I follow up on that? When you say that you don't see a need for a change, does that mean then it would come before us, like for a use permit, if someone wanted to experiment on mini pigs? Is that
so? That is an alternative, and that would be a change to the ordinance. So you would, instead of having city council named as the approving authority, you could recommend that planning commission be named, and that would actually be I think a cleaner process that would align closer with other use permits, if that's the way you want to go.
But at this point, what the council did in 2008 was declare themselves the deciding authority for use permits under this ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
And so if we simply, I'm just trying to get the procedure straight, if we simply decided tonight to not forward a recommendation to the city council to modify the existing ordinance, then the status quo remains, and any application for research on pigs next week goes to the city council, not to us, correct?
Correct.
Well, you'll be making a recommendation to the council. You would be recommending denial of the code amendment. It's the council's decision whether they proceed with the amendment.
Right.
One way or the other. So yes.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent clarification. I mean, they've just simply asked us for our weigh in as to whether we would recommend modifying the existing ordinance or not.
Correct.
If we don't recommend that, they still get to decide nay or yay. And any pig application between now and then goes to the council and not us. Right. Okay. Thank you. And just for clarification.
No, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Can you clarify? So, couldn't the council on their own just say, just vote that all these, what the code said, they'll accept that, and any other issue just goes before us normally, right? That they won't hear any applications regarding animal testing.
If they choose to do that, they can. That would be an amendment. Because right now there are no use permits anymore, right? It's it's approved or it's prohibited,
Okay.
right? That's the way the amendment is posed. If the council wanted to keep that middle ground of use permit, then they would have the choice of either retaining the legal authority over the use permit, or they could say, no, the planning commission is the better body for a use permit review. They can change that, because, actually what they did in this ordinance originally was quite unusual. The other thing they could think about doing is looking at, if you're going to keep a use permit, someone would probably want to look at the findings a little more critically, because I'm not sure that the standard use permit findings might be getting some of the core issues that either community values or scientific need or anything, right? You look at the sort of generic use permit findings, and frankly, I think it puts any decision-making body in sort of twilight world of you're dealing with an application, and the things you'll be hearing from people on various sides of it have probably very little to do with the findings that you're theoretically supposed to judge this on. So I think if they are going to keep a use permit, whether it's the commission or under their purview, the findings should be reconsidered for this particular type of permit, is my opinion.
But as we sit here tonight, if we decide not to recommend to the council any change in the ordinance, an application tomorrow for a use permit for pigs goes straight to the council and only to the council, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And if we do not recommend the code amendment, could city council simply amend it without our recommendation to do so?
Yes, if you're going to take an action on this one way or the other, whether it's to deny it or approve it with modifications. It's not just going to be tabled here. So, your recommendation will go to the council, and they can either accept your recommendation, or they can reject it, or they can modify it. Right? It's not dead in the water, or it's not going to just sit here in limbo if the commission, it's just not going to sit before the commission for an extended period of time. It'll go back to the council for final say.
Mm-hmm.
Whether even if you don't want to do it, that's in a sense, you're recommending denial of that's the action the commission would be putting forward. We're recommending the amendment be denied.
Okay. So are all the commissioners clear on the process and the implications?
I am.
And is anyone ready to make a motion on this topic? It's probably not appropriate for me to do it, right?
You can.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we deny the proposed code amendment.
No, second.
Can I have a voice vote, please?
Commissioner Funka,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
No.
All right, so now I have to be careful about how I phrase this. Does the motion pass with a vote of 3 ayes and 1 no?
That's correct.
All right. That's what I will say then. Well, thank you. Is that
Through the chair, you should read the appeals process.
okay? Anyone may appeal the action of the planning commission to the city council, except where specified otherwise. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk not later than 15 days, calendar days, following the planning commission's decision. Exceptions to the 15-day filing period include the following. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk within 6 calendar days of the planning commission's action for use permits and variances, and 10 calendar days for tentative maps and advertising sign applications. An application form and fee is required to make a formal appeal. For additional information, please contact the city clerk at 415-508-2110. So thank you. I think we can move on with the rest of the agenda. Are there any items initiated by staff?
Just two items. One is just for your information, the housing element will be considered by the city council next Thursday evening. So we will see how that goes. And the other item is, I know Commissioner Saison's aware of this, is that the annual planning commissioner training that is put on, I believe it's by the, it's not APA. Who puts that on, Pamela, do you recall? So maybe.
Not off the top of my head. I
Yeah,
don't.
local, maybe the.
I think it's
local government-
ILG.
Yeah, ILG, or yeah, it's for local government. They have a 2-day planning commission workshop that's going to be in person, I believe, this year down in Southern California. It's at the end of March, and certainly the city has budget for planning commissioner travel and training. So we'll be sending out some information on that. So if you are interested, we encourage you to attend if that works for you. And we could coordinate the logistical arrangements for that. But we'll be sending that out to all the commissioners either tomorrow or next week.
John, is this the same or is this the same or different from the one that was last fall that I?
That was
signed up for the
different.
admit-
That 1-day deal was put on by a different organization. This would be more like the one I believe went to Monterey when you were a newer commissioner. I think more akin to that.
Thank you.
Sure. And unless my staff has any items that we need to talk about, I think that's it. That I know of.
Great.
Have
Thank
we,
you very much.
sorry, did we confirm we are canceling the 9th? Director Swicky?
Do we have any business items for the 9th?
We do not.
We
So
do
I
not.
would announce that.
Yeah, then we could adjourn to the meeting. And what would be the next following meeting for it'll be the 23rd? 23rd, okay. So we recommend to the chair that we adjourn to the February 23rd meeting.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine, unless someone really wants to meet on the 9th. I think we'll adjourn to the 23rd.
And so just for clarification, is the 23rd then going to be an in-person meeting?
It'll be a hybrid meeting,
Hybrid like this one? Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right. Any other items initiated by any members of the commission? No, Commissioner Saison. Commissioner Lau. In that case, I understand it's my prerogative just to adjourn the meeting without calling for a voice vote or anything like that. So thank you very much. I thought it was a really stimulating discussion, and I really appreciate how thoughtful everyone was. So until the 23rd.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.